wasted enough time. So inquiry-based learning, let's have a look what we're doing. All right. So inquiry-based learning, in a nutshell, is basically using questions to generate interest. So let's look at these two statements. So these are two ways in which we could start a lesson. So A, this week we will be learning about space exploration. That's a perfectly okay way to start a lesson. Or we could start with, do you think it's important to explore space? Right, let's have a little look at the difference between those two styles. So students can agree or disagree with the statement in question, A or B. Well, they can agree or disagree with it with B, can't they? There's nothing to agree or disagree with A. Oh, sorry, hang on a second. Now my slides are going all over the place. Honestly, what is happening today? Sorry. Okay, all right. Students can start to discuss the topic using their prior knowledge, A or B. Again, it's B. They can start to say something. Students will feel that their opinion is valuable, A or B, B. Will feel that they can contribute to the topic, okay, again, it's B. And they will feel that the topic is led by you, again, we can see that it's B. Now then, there's nothing wrong with starting with A as well. And I think probably most of us in the classroom might actually say this week we'll be learning about space exploration and then go on to what we call the big question. But I would like to say that there is a very important role in the classroom, a very important place in the classroom for small questions as well. So let's have a little look at the difference between this. We've got big questions and we've got small questions. All right, okay. So let's have a look what we think they are, big or small. So do you use electricity in your home? Well, they can just say yes or no, can't they? So that's a small question. Yeah, we're agreeing there. What powers our lives? That's a very big question. In fact, it might almost be too big. We don't even know where to start with that. Okay, that's a very big question. What makes someone a hero? Again, yeah, that's a big question. We're all agreeing with that. What's your favorite superhero called? That's a nice, manageable, small question. Yeah. All right. Why do we go to school? That's a big question, isn't it? No easy answers there. We've got to really think. Do you like your school? That's a small question, isn't it? We can just say yes or no. Do you live in a village or a city? Again, that's a small question. And why do people live in cities? Well, again, that's a very big question. All right. So as I say, what we want to do in our teaching is to use both of these kinds of questions, but not just to use the small questions. But first, let's look at the benefit of some small questions. Okay, so there's a comfort in being asked small questions. Most of this webinar is going to be talking about, yes, open questions, the big questions. But as I say, there is an important place for these smaller questions. The feeling of being guided and looked after in a lesson is a very comforting one. And this is something that we must always remember, especially in our primary lessons, and again, and with our teenagers as well, that our number one role actually is we're looking after the children for that time that they are with us. And we want them to feel comfortable and feel ready to learn. Okay, so we're going to push them to do all sorts of things, but that's our main aim. And then having small, manageable tasks expected of you is also comforting as well. And I would like to give you like a sort of personal experience with that. About a year and a half ago, I decided I wanted to learn to play the piano. I knew nothing about the piano. I've never played the piano. I knew nothing at all. So I bought myself, a nice big, electronic piano, like 88, keys, big keyboard, really nice. And then, of course, I started, like many of us do. I thought I can do it on YouTube. I'll do it online, okay? So I started to watch some videos online. And, of course, you start doing a bit, but you very quickly get out of your depth, And you start to expect, actually, too much of yourself. And then because you're expecting too much of yourself, you can't manage it. And so you end up giving up. So then I thought, okay, this isn't working. So I went to a small music school and I signed up for lessons with a piano teacher. And it was just so lovely because she would expect not too little of me, but just the right amount from me every day. And I realized I didn't have to be able to do everything straight away. I could just have this very finite task that I would go home and practice. And next week and the following week, I go and show her what I'd done. And she set me another very small, manageable task. So it's this thing about having parameters set for you is reassuring. Okay. And knowing that you know the answer to a question or that you can do something is also very satisfying. Being able to make simple contributions is comforting and satisfying for all of our children. And things like activities such as a themed general knowledge quiz can be a very rewarding way to end a demanding lesson. When I had my school, we used to do all sorts of things. I used to really try to challenge them and get them to think and do different things. But they also loved at the end. I had a big book and I made a book of quizzes. And it was things like capital cities of the world, I don't know, famous people, inventions, that kind of thing. Really, they just had to give names. And they loved just having a sort of 20 questions themed general knowledge quiz at the end. And it was kind of relaxing because thinking a lot is very exhausting, actually. It's very exhausting. And our kids come to us for our English lessons amongst all the other lessons they have as well. So we've got to bear this in mind. Doing too much thinking can be very exhausting for our kids. So it's nice to also keep things small as well as big. So our next challenge then is how can we make delving into big questions as manageable as it is delving into answering small questions. All right, so I would say that first of all, a very good idea is to provide different ways of being able to respond initially to big questions. So in other words, we're going to try and break them down, and we're going to tell our kids, okay, you can make notes, you can draw sketches, you can record your thoughts into your phone or onto your laptop or your tablet. You can work in groups, you can work as an individual, you can work in pairs. There are different ways in which you can do your thinking and you can start to get into this, into these big questions. You can respond, you can just tell your friend next to you the answer that you think, your thoughts, or you can share things with the whole class. And I think a very good idea is to use a bulletin board, your board, your notice board in the classroom. And if you put your big question up there, you can encourage children to add their sketches, to add their notes, to add their ideas. You can add small bits at a time, because none of our big questions that we're going to ask children can be answered completely. None of them can be answered easily. And what, very importantly, we need our children to know that they can, their thoughts and their ideas can be changed and adapted and altered. We can change our minds. It's very important that our children, that we realize we can think, oh, I don't think what I said yesterday is true. I think I've thought of something else today. I'm going to change my note on the bulletin board. And in fact, in the last webinar I had, one of the attendees said that they have that in their school. They do something like that, and they call it a wonder wall. A wonder wall. So I thought that's lovely because it's wonder as in awesome, amazing, but also wondering, thinking about things. So I think something like this, it's a good idea that maybe we can adapt this. It's very important. So we don't have to answer these big questions all at once. We can start musing on them, and then we can take tips from social media. Now then, let's think of Instagram and Facebook. Okay, so interaction starts by someone sharing one small piece of content. It's very often an image, or a very small amount of text. Not many people write a lot of do a lot of writing on either of those, on any of the social medias. Okay. And then people can comment in any way they wish. I mean, very often people just comment with another image or a meme or a little symbol, don't we? We say, we're just like, wow. So we can do that on our bulletin board as well. If children's first contribution is just like, oh my God, that's amazing. Well, let's put that up on the bulletin board as well, because it's a start. It's still a contribution. It's still an expression of interest. And then sometimes we add our own information or ideas. One thing leads to another. And we can continue to add as much as we like. Now, as we know, these things move on quickly in social media. But in our classroom, we could have something up for a week and start to think about things. You might want to have it up for a whole term, a whole year, if you get really into this. We can continue to add as much as we like, and we very freely share ideas. Okay, we share each other's ideas. So I think if we take all those little tips from social media and think about applying the way we're doing that in the classroom, how we're reacting to our big questions, that will help us. Okay, so all right, so let's go on to some practical lesson ideas and see how we would actually manage what I've just been saying in the classroom. So our big question here is, why do we explore space? All right, that's a big question. Where are we going to start with that? So first of all, we can divide these things up. Okay, so share out the planets. There aren't many kids who are inclined to learn all the planets and the order from the sun. It's quite a difficult thing to do, to remember that just out of nothing. So if you share them out and give them all a planet each, like either a planet each or pairs of children or a group of children, you've got Mercury, you have Mars, you have Saturn, let them just find out one interesting thing about that planet, okay? Then that will be enough for them to get going on something. Or you could do it the other way around. You could tell them one interesting thing about one planet, but don't tell them what the planet is. Let them find out which one it is. Now, of course, here you're either going to use online resources or you're going to use books. So I will be referring a little bit to a book that much of this material is from. It's called Now I Know. And our whole sort of philosophy in Now I Know was starting with big questions. And we've got a whole unit in level 6, which is one of the levels that I wrote, all about exploring space. You can get the children to make 3 true or false statements, and we guess which one's not true. That's another way of starting off this lesson. And then you can play to their strengths. Who can draw the planet? Who's good at drawing? Who likes drawing? Doesn't matter who's good at drawing. Who likes drawing? Who can remember their order from the sun? There will always be some kid that enjoys learning the order of the planets from the sun, and maybe that kid can share with us how he or she remembers them. Maybe they've got a way of remembering. How do they do it? They visualize it. How do they remember it? Let the kids teach us something like that. So we can start off. These are ways in which we can start off thinking about this huge topic. Why do we explore space? All right, now then, let's go on. I'm starting, this is also in our lesson. All right, look at this. Now then, this, you see this image, this is somewhere in space. What is it? Where is it? And why is it there? Somebody might know. It's a UFO? No, it's not a UFO. It's not a UFO. All right, why is it there? Let's see if anybody knows. A pioneer disk. It's not Mars. It's not Mars. Okay, anybody else got any ideas? Well, it's not the moon. No, it's not the moon. Okay, well, it's not a satellite. No, it's not the sun. Okay, aha, okay, somebody knew. It's the Voyager disk. So I will tell you about this. Voyager, okay. All right, so this is a golden LP, a golden record, a golden disc, and it's on the Voyager 1 space probe. Now then, Voyager 1 is an unmanned space probe, and it was launched into space in 1977. And the mission of Voyager was to photograph and collect information, data about Jupiter and Saturn. That was it. It was a finite mission. And the scientists at NASA thought that the mission would last for 5 years. However, Voyager 1 is still traveling through interstellar space today, and it is still sending back tiny little, they know it's there because every so often, like, I don't know, every 3 months or something, they get a little beep, and they know that it's still up there in interstellar space. Now, attached to this unmanned space probe is this golden record. So, what do you think is on the record? What do you think is on the record? Hang on, I will give you a clue. I will give you a clue. All right. All right, this is a clue. This is a clue. Okay, all right. So I think some people know about this. Excellent. Music, information, tribe music. Yeah, sounds familiar. Our genetic data. Okay. All right. So what is on this Voyager record is actually, hang on. Sorry, the slides are changing very slowly today. All right. So on this golden disc, floating through interstellar space, or probably zooming through interstellar space, are spoken greetings from the planet Earth in 55 different languages, including ancient languages like Latin and Sanskrit, which are no longer spoken. There are images of sheet music, there are images of mathematical equations, there are images of people, images of nature, images of everyday objects. Then there are sounds, hundreds of sounds. There's a heartbeat, footsteps, the wind, birdsong. There's music by Bach, by Beethoven, by pipes and drums, by Navajo Indian chants. That was the clue. Rock and roll, wedding songs, music from all over the world. Crying babies. Okay, somebody else knows about this. Okay, there's all sorts of things on this and much, much more. So I think it's quite fascinating, isn't it, actually, what is that it's still out there. So, okay. So then we can start to think about how we would do some follow-up activities. Well, maybe an obvious thing to do would be to make your own recording. So for whoever or whatever might find it out there in outer space. So, what would you say? What would you say on this recording? You could give the kids, they could practice their English, thinking what would they like to say, and they're bound to say silly things as well, aren't they? That would be funny, but they would have fun thinking of what they would like to communicate with people. You could photograph things. What would you photograph that would give somebody an idea of your daily life? Suppose you just had to have one photograph, or suppose you could have 3 photographs. Again, this is something, and then the kids could write about it as well, or they could definitely talk about it. And then you could get the kids to prepare a sound quiz. So they could record things, and we've got to guess what they are. So they could record anything, obviously not music, sounds that they hear around them. And then they could have a little quiz in the classroom. We've got to guess where they are. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it, for vocabulary as well, unusual vocabulary. And I think it would get the kids really engaged as well. I mean, it gets us engaged, doesn't it, just to think about all those things that are out there. And then, of course, what you can do is you can follow up by actually doing more research. Because once you get into this, and all of this information about the Voyager record, this is all in Now I Know. Okay, it's a 6-level course, and it's in level 6. So you can check out the NASA site, and you can follow Voyager's progress, because that's fascinating. Once you get onto the NASA site, and there's like special NASA kids bits as well, it's fascinating. And for the teenagers and upwards, Voyager has a Twitter account. So you can follow Voyager on. I think it's not actually sending messages from interstellar space, but somebody, I don't know where they are in Houston, is keeping the Voyager account. But there are several fake Voyager accounts as well. So you've got to make sure I think this one's the bona fide one at NASA Voyager. So anyway, we're doing all this very quickly, but you could go on with something like this in the classroom. This could take you, you could keep on with this for a week or 2 weeks or something, couldn't you? Finding out about other things, and then you start getting interested into the planets as well. Where has it been? Where is it now? What's it doing, etc. Okay, so So generally speaking, so that was like a lesson plan, let's say. But our main aim for our kids is for our children to acquire and to keep up an inquiring mind. Okay, so let's see. So an inquiring mind is actually innate. Okay, and we are born with inquiring minds. And we know this very well because when our little ones, when our toddlers who are about two to three, or probably about two and a half, and they can hardly say anything, they ask why about absolutely everything. Now then, this is where a lot of people go wrong, really, because some adults believe that they have to find because answers. Because the kid has said why, they think they've got to find a because answer. And that is where people sometimes give up, because there isn't a because answer to a question like, why is that a leaf? You just say, oh, look at that nice leaf. And say, why is it a leaf? All right, there isn't an answer to why, but what we must know, and what we do know, is that the whys of our young really mean, well, that's very interesting. Let's continue this discussion. Of course, if they're two and a half, they can't say that. So they just say, why, all the time. And the trouble is that some parents do give up almost at that very early stage. So instead of saying, uh, you know, uh, so they tend to say things like, oh, it's a leaf because I said it's a leaf. It's a leaf because it's a leaf, or I don't know, or, because I said so, or just stop asking me these questions. We know that, some parents do this. So, but instead of doing that, we can obviously just continue to chat about leaves and colors and natures and so on. So you know that, and I know that, but not everyone knows that. So it is our job, it's our role as educators to continue our kids' discussions about everything and everything, to keep this inquiring mind that they have, to continue to wonder and to chat and to think. Okay, this is our role, really, isn't it? And I do think that this is because so many questions are too difficult to answer, that some people give up. And you can see that our little ones are definitely not giving up, definitely not giving up, definitely not. And then when they get to be teenagers, they've got so many questions, and so many questions, they feel like they're having to, it's very difficult for them to find answers to these big things. And that is where some kids do start to give up. But this is obviously where they're at the most alert, isn't it? When they're teenagers and they're absolutely full of hormones and ideas, and they chat to each other about all these things. But it's good if they can chat to us about all these different big ideas as well. So, okay, all right. So I think that these, in a nutshell, these are the things that we can do. First of all, we can be open to big questions, and we can really arm our kids with different ways of answering these big questions, and knowing that there isn't a right or a wrong answer. We just keep on learning, and along the way, we do find out lots of different information, and we still might never find the answer to why do we explore space. But it sends us on a very interesting path. We have to be prepared to wonder, to muse, the idea that you can just wander around thinking about things. Very often in school, we have this pressure to answer things quickly, don't we? Because of our time frame, because of our syllabus. We do sometimes get hemmed in by time. But it's nice to say, well, I don't know about that now, but I can, let's think about that. Let's think about it a bit today, and let's think about it a bit more tomorrow. To do things in a small way, to know that we don't have to find immediate answers, and to know that there's no such thing as a silly answer. It might lead to a good one. You might come up with some daft idea that you've thought of, and then when you throw it around the class and think about something, you might realize that actually that wasn't such a silly idea after all. And then obviously to equip our children with ways of making steps towards finding answers. So to teach them, to give them the tools, that's the thing about giving them the books, the magazines, the journals, to find out how to search for ideas. We can all Google, but it's knowing how to start Googling, and how to any search engine that we use. you know, to phrase our questions and to follow things up, and then to do something with them as well, which is why we often end our lessons with projects, isn't it? Or you know, we end our topics with a project, because we can see that something, we've actually done something for all our musing. And then, you know, we have to share our enthusiasm and passion, which is, I hope, is what we're doing today. Now, I've got to tell you as well that this doesn't always work, that you might think you can, if you share enthusiasm, it's always going to be taken well by kids. But I've got to tell you this little story. One of my little grandchildren, and she's now 7, but when she was about 4, I took her to Athens. So we don't live in Athens. We live about 200 kilometers north of Athens. So it's a big deal for her. And I took her on a train and we went down there. So it was pretty exciting going on a train for a start. And when we got there, my daughter came and picked us up. And of course, we were driving to her house. And I was very keen to show Ariadne all these different places. There's the Acropolis, the Parthenon, there's Syntagma Square. You can see the change in the color, all these amazing antiquities you can see. And I was saying, oh, look, Ariel, look over there. There's that. And Ariel was in the car and she just said, Grandma, all those things that you want to tell me another day, please. So, you know, sharing your enthusiasm. So I said, okay, all right, I understand. She was just happy to be in the car, you know. She was happy after her train journey. So we have to find the right time to share our enthusiasm and passion. Right, so I'm going to we're going to ask some questions. I think I've got another housekeeping slide, as they say. We'll have a look and see if there's any questions that you've asked. There are still, so it's the 11th day, there are another 4 days still of other webinars. You can you know, you can still register for these other webinars as well. Yeah, and that's it. So let me just see if we've got any questions, if Charlie's or Joanna have collated any of the questions. If I can, you see, probably now I can't even see these. Hang on a second. I'm sorry, I'm very sorry about the misconnection at the beginning. Okay, so Charlie, I can't seem to see any of the messages. Why have you, well, teaching chose me, really. It was one of those things. Why have I chosen teaching? I think a lot of us, especially English teacher in those years, we just thought, oh, it'd be nice to go around the world, see something. And then, of course, you get into it and you realize it's a great profession. Okay, right. Well, I'm afraid I can't see if there are any messages with any. Charlie, can you hear me? Are there any questions that I've got to answer here? Sorry. Okay, well then, my dears, thank you very much. I will finish it off. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think maybe the conversation